Today, you're going to learn a bit about Svelte. And what is Svelte? Before we begin, this video sponsor is Linode, and they make it easy and affordable to host your site, app, or service on whatever technology stack you use. Unlike entry-level hosting services, Linode is a step up to powerful, fast, fully configurable cloud computing. With server plans starting at just $5 plus no hidden fees or surprise outages, Linode offers a no-nonsense hosting at a price you can afford. So sign up now using the link below to get a $20 credit on your new Linode account. Hey everyone, what's up? Gary Simon of CourseSetro.com. So today we're going to be talking about, not really talking, I'm going to be showing you the ropes as it pertains to svelte.js. So what is Svelte? Well, it's basically cybernetically enhanced web apps. That's all you need to know about it, and let's get started. No, I'm just kidding. Basically, it is a competitor to, or it's in the same realm or the same space to Angular, React, Vue, etc. So it's just another option from which you can use to create single page apps and all of that good stuff. And so we're going to be covering this from a very basic beginner's level understanding of it. And I'm also going to show you how to deploy it using this video sponsor, which is linode.com. So if you click, and you already saw the initial video of the ad for linode.com, my pre-roll ad, but just to reiterate, you get $20 free credit by signing up in our link. And so the description here, the very first link. And so I'm going to show you exactly how to set up a server and how to install the web server on that server within Debian, and then also how to get everything from GitHub, from pushing from your local environment, and then pulling into your Linode account in your server. Very, very cool stuff. And it's something that's very applicable to any other app, like a React app or an Angular app. So I'll stop talking now. I should say, though, you should have a basic understanding of JavaScript before you get into Svelte, Angular, React, Vue, etc. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the very first thing we're going to do is check to make sure you have Node installed, Node-V in your command line or your console. And I do have installed. If that goes unrecognized, you're going to want to visit nodejs.org and install it based on your current operating system. Install it and then reload your command line, your console, and you can run this command and it will show up this time. So now we're going to go ahead and install this Svelte project template. So to do that, npx degit dget SV, I'm not sure even how do you pronounce that. The location is svelte.js /template, and then just the name of what we want this to be. All right, so we hit enter and it's going to install for a bit. There we go, or download it rather. Then we're going to cd into it, and then we're going to go ahead npm I. npm is the Node package manager. It's installed when you install Node. I is short for install. You can type in install if you want, or just the shorthand. All right, so if your code editor is Visual Studio Code, go ahead, type in code period in the project folder, and we can go ahead and take a look here real quick. Before we actually look at the project structure, we're going to go ahead and run npm run dev. And that will start a development server at localhost 5000. So we'll just go ahead and get that open here. And we have this very simple hello world. This is our Svelte project. All right, so now we're going to get back to our code editor. All right, and so now we're going to talk about the project folder and the file structure. So it's surprisingly very simplistic in terms of its file and folder structure compared to the other competitors such as Angular and Vue. But at the bottom we see rollup.config.js, and this is just a module bundler for JavaScript. So think of it as a competitor to Webpack and Parcel, etc. So next up, you're going to be working, by the way, node modules, you're never going to be working in there. That's just your project dependencies as defined in package.json. Your public folder, you're not going to be working in there. That's basically where the compiled code goes to. This is the part that, on your web server, this is that you would upload, or that's the part that would be used. And then source, this is where we're working at. And we just have two files here. So the first one is main.js. If you're familiar with Vue, this looks kind of similar in terms of how the app actually gets started. We're just importing our app from app.svelte, which is in reference to this file right here, and that's a component. And the components are basic building blocks of your app. And this isn't something that's specific to just Svelte. This is a concept that applies to Angular, Vue, React, etc. And basically, we have this object that gets started here, and we're just using target. And this is basically where the app is appended to in the HTML document body. And then props this is something that just this demo, this template added for us, a prop of name with the value of world. So now in our app.svelte, which is basically our primary component that we get started with, we could see we have our 3 basic building blocks of a component. So we have the logic within the script tags up here. We have the style, which is for our CSS to actually make it look good. And then also our HTML or a template. And you can notice it's not contained within any type of templating tags or anything like that. It's just out. It sits outside of the style and the script tags here. So that's how Svelte does that. All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about is routing. And it's not necessarily something that you have to understand first, but I'm just choosing to make it first. So unfortunately, at the time of recording this, there's not an official Svelte router. All right, so the router in any context, not just Svelte, is just something that allows you to hook up your components within your app and allow people to navigate between those different components or those pages, if you will. So there's not an official router for Svelte. But there's numerous routers that people have developed on their own. And so we're going to use one of those unofficial routers to help us navigate through the different components of our app. So first we need to install that in the terminal. All right, so let's go ahead here back to our terminal. I'm being slow. There we go. So I'm going to just hit plus here, cd svelte project. And we're going to run npm I, or for install. Save it as a dependency, Svero. All right, so while that installs, we can check out the GitHub page here for Svero, and it'll tell you a bunch of information. I'm not going to be going over every possibility, but you can provide parameters and all that good stuff between them. So now what we'll do is go back here, and we're going to visit our app.svelte once again, which we're already at, and we're going to get rid of that, and we're going to set up this router, because we want to have a couple pages. I want to show you how to set up different pages within your Svelte app. So we're going to do import router and route from the package that we just installed. Next, we're going to import a header from, and this file doesn't yet exist. It will shortly though. Header.svelte. There we go. All right, so header. This right here, header, is just coming from the file name header. All right, so we don't set that up within header.svelte. You'll see that shortly. We're going to do 2 more pages. We're going to do index, kind of like the starting or home page or whatever, and also about. All right, and that's it for the script section. The style section, I'm going to leave that empty. We're not going to touch it at all. And the way we nest a component, so we already imported header, right? We simply reference it in a custom HTML tag called header, like that. Very, very simple. So now any of the template from this header svelte is going to show up right here at the very top. This right here, this is where we're going to have our router. So if you're familiar with Angular, for instance, it uses something called a router outlet. We're not going to do that exactly, but it's the same concept almost. So we're going to have, first I'm going to wrap everything in a container. That way we can control it with CSS. And then inside of here, we're going to put a router. Now, oops, didn't add it. Yeah, it's not going to work. So what I'll just do is router. And then inside of it, we define our actual routes right here. So, and again, router, this HTML type, this comes from being imported from here, by the way. All right, so we're going to say next, for our first route, And again, route is another custom HTML tag coming from here. We're going to put as an attribute of path. We're going to say any. That's a wildcard path basically, and it's going to say if there's no other defined routes that match something else, then it's just going to default to the component of index. All right, just like that. Now Shift, Alt, and a down arrow key will replicate that line, and this one we're just going to have about. All right, so basically what's happening here is any path that matches, if the path matches about, then it's going to show about. Any other path, doesn't matter what it is, it's going to show index. So hopefully that makes sense there. All right, good stuff. So now let's go ahead and create those files. So let's take we're going to be in our source. We're going to create another folder called pages, and then we'll stick all those svelte components or those pages inside of that folder. So we'll make the first one about.svelte. All right. So again, remember, it has 3 different sections, your components. It has a script, style, and your templating. You don't have to add them all, as you'll see, based on your needs. So we're going to put in, for this one, a script section. And this is going to let us have access to the router information if you need it for a given page. We don't necessarily need it for this one, but I wanted to demonstrate it just in case. So router.path, router.route, and router.params or parameters is what you can access. And again, this is coming from the documentation right here. And it just kind of lets you know the various information that you can grab from. This is actually right here, the code that I just put in from the router. So we're going to put h1 about me, I don't know, whatever. And then we're going to put a paragraph. This is my router path, if I can type right. And then we'll put through interpolation, which is the squiggly braces, pretty common. We're going to say router.path. So this is just going to print out this right here in this section. But let's keep on going before we check out the app. Let's create the other necessary pages real quickly. So let's go ahead and we'll create a index.svelte. Remember, that's the other one we referenced in our app.svelte. And this time, I'm just going to put in paragraph, lorem, and that's it. So as you can see, we can omit the style if we don't need any custom style for this specific component or any specific logic. So it could just be completely HTML if it's a static page with no, dynamic requirements or styling requirements at all. Finally, we're going to do one more, and that's our header. We also referenced a header right here. So that's one of those things that you would definitely want to nest within your app.svelte, and it's going to just print out at the top of everything. So let's create our header.svelte. I think we're just going to leave in our source, or it's not necessarily a page. So we'll just create header.svelte. There we go. And inside of here, we have one import. So we're going to reference our script tag. And this is coming from that custom router again. So we're going to import link from Sphero. And you'll see how that's used in a second. So we're going to have our custom, our HTML rather. So we'll wrap everything up in a header tag. And then we're going to have, normally, I'm going to have like a logo, but it's just going to be a type-based logo. Normally it would be like an ahref or whatever, or an a tag. This time, for it to work correctly, we're going to use a link tag as defined up there. So link href is just where we want this to go, this particular link, and it's just going to be like a logo, word mark type of logo. Class name, notice class name instead of class, because again, this is a custom element, custom component-based element from that library we installed. We'll just call this logo, and then we'll just say, I don't know, my app. There we go. Next up, after that, we'll have a nav element, a UL element inside of the nav element, if I can get this all spaced out right. Inside of there, we'll have an LI element, and inside of here, we'll have another link element. So link, href. This will go back to home again. We're just going to have kind of 2 areas to get in there. And then one more that just says about. All right, very good. Let's go ahead and say, make sure all your files are saved at this point, and we'll go back to our app. Oh, and we don't see anything. So let's check out and see what's happening here. Could not resolve about.svelte from source.app. Let's check that out. Oh, that's because we need to put in pages. Not on that one though. And that's strange. There's no error shown in the console, so I'm just going to stop the console and reload it. All right, I just had to refresh it a couple times. For some reason it wasn't working, but there we go. We have my app and home and about. So if we click on home, we'll see I'm home is there and about as well. This is about me. And by the way, we can see this is my router path. It's just showing us if you ever needed your router path for some reason, then it's showing up right here through Interpolation. All right, so great stuff. So now let's give this a little bit of style because it's looking horrible. So to do that, what we're going to do here is we're going to hop back into our app.svelte, and inside of our empty style tag, we're going to get rid of the default margin and padding that the browser gives our app. I always kind of do that by default with every project. So we can see this a little bit. In fact, if we Control-Shift-I, you get out the Chrome DevTools, click on this, you'll see the body element. Just by default, the browser gives it that little bit of margin padding in there. So the typical way you would do that is just you put body right here, and I hate how it does that sometimes. And what we'll put is margin 0, I'm like padding 0, right? So if we save this, it doesn't go away. And that's because the body tag doesn't actually exist in this component. And your CSS styling is specifically scoped to just the HTML that's in this component. So to make this work here within Svelte, we put a colon, global, and wrap the body or the selector, the CSS selector, within parentheses. So it's kind of like a function of sorts. Save it, and then now you're going to see it goes away. So that's a real, something that you need to understand. So we'll also reference our container. For some reason, with these Svelte extensions, whenever I specify a selector and hit enter here in Visual Studio Code, it's just adding that property. Very annoying. We'll put width 80%. Somebody could tell me how to fix that perhaps in the comments. And we're just going to do margin 4EM auto. So now, there we go. Now let's go ahead and make the rest look half decent at least. So we're going to head off into our header because that's where most of our HTML at this point is so far. And we're going to add in style. And for this time, I'm not going to hand type everything. I don't want this to take too long. We'll just have a header, display flex, justify content, space between, background. Nav UL, we're getting rid of list style type. We're going to make it a display flex and then margin 0. If we save that, we get this so far. Still looks ugly, so let's fix that. Next two are going to use that global sort of svelte function here. Header A, and the links don't exist because we have this link, this pseudo sort of link right here, in here, and here. So that's why I had to make this global and say header A and then logo. And there we go. So now it works. Doesn't look like the greatest thing you've ever seen, but this certainly is not a design tutorial. Okay, obviously. So now let's continue on. So now let's just start talking about the basic things that you can do in Svelte and how you achieve them in Svelte. So something as simple as printing out a variable or property of some sort, otherwise known as interpolation. So we already covered this, a little bit with the squiggly braces or the curly braces, but let's go over it specifically. So let's head on over to our index.svelte and let's come up here. We're going to put in our script tags. So let's say we have a property that's defined in our script up here in the logic side of the component. And we'll just call it bro. So we're just going to say let bro equals bro. Now, if this looks confusing to you, you definitely should stop at this point and understand basic JavaScript. So I'm not going to be describing everything that's happening here. So we're going to say let bro equals bro. And what if we wanted to show this in our component logic? How would we do that? Well, let's get rid of all this stuff first. So our h1 tag, we're just going to say, if we wanted to print this out, this property, we wrap it in these curly braces or these brackets and say bro, because that's the name of our property up there. So now if we save this, go back to our project, we'll see if we click home, bro, it's this property right here, whatever that's set, okay? Very simple stuff. So now let's talk a little bit about event handling. So an event is something like a click or a hover, like a mouse out, mouse over, etc. So what we'll do is we're going to leave let bro there, and we're going to say function click event, and we're going to say bro equals dude. So what we're doing here is in this method, or this function, we're redefining the property right here. So initially it's set at bro equals bro, but we're going to say bro equals dude if this function is called. So how do we call that function? Well, basically we have to give a user interface element of some sort for people to call, or some action or event to occur to call that method. So we're going to have a button here. So we're going to say onClick equals click event. And then our button title here is click me, and there we go. That's it. So we say on colon and then the actual event. There's a bunch of events, by the way. Click is just one of them. And the way you call and you reference a given function is just to wrap it in curly braces and click event, and that's it. So let's go ahead and save that and see what happens, because this right here through interpolation is going to be bro initially. After we click this, we're resetting it to dude. So it should literally change from bro to dude. All right, so here we go. Very simple. I mean, it's the most amazing app I've ever seen in my entire life. All right, so if and else, let's talk about that. It's one of those things, you're developing almost any type of app, you're going to have an if and else statement of some sort. So let's get rid of all the other stuff. We're going to say, this time we're going to have a new property in the form of an object. So let person equals, open up the object here first, and it's just going to have one property. Status is dude. I'm completely sticking to this bro dude thing. I'm sorry. So let's get rid of all this stuff in our template, and we're going to say, here's how you do the if. So you open up the interpolation brackets. Basically anything dynamic is opening up with the squiggly brackets or the curly braces, whatever you want to call them. So we're going to say if, hashtag if, person.status. So that's how you reference a object in a specific property, very basic JavaScript stuff, equals dude. Oops. We can say h1 dude. And then we'll end the if that way. All right, so let's check it out. It does equal dude because it says let persons, the status is dude. And if it does equal dude, then that. What if it doesn't equal dude? Well, that's where an else comes into play. So all we have to do is after this, we'll put in else, so a colon else, h1, and then we're just going to put person.status through interpolation. So let's make this, let's leave it at status dude, and of course it's going to stay at dude because it equals dude, right? So if we change this to bro, it's just going to say bro right here instead because we said else. And there we go. Very, very simple. You can go further and say else if. All right, so let's change the status here to whoa. And inside of here, we're going to say else if person.status is equals to bro. We'll say h1 bro. Else we'll just log out or print out the status. In this case, it's going to print out the status because it's not equal to dude or bro. So if, else, if, no, first it's if, and then if else, and then if, else, if, else. if that makes sense. So we just demonstrated those three concepts that you can use in your templates. Now let's also talk about interpolation. So no, not interpolation, iteration. Iterating through something like an array of objects, or just an array itself. So how do you do that? Very simple. We'll say let persons equals, we want an array, so we open up in brackets. And then we have an array of objects individually. So we're going to say status for this one will be dude, and then also another property will be tagline. We'll say yo sup, and then we'll just replicate that. That's Shift Alt and down arrow key real quick. So dude is going to be bro this time, and then this one's going to be chick. I don't know. I'm just using early 2000s, late 90s or 90s slang. So gnarly man, and then this one's going to be what you want, boo. Okay, so at this point, how would we take this? For instance, this could be something that you grab from a backend. Like if you're storing data in a database, the data that's returned to you could come in this format as an array of objects. Very typical, and you're going to see that later on when we do actually pull from an API. So understanding this stuff is important. I know I'm kind of like screwing around with the data here just to make it interesting, but still very important stuff. So UL, we'll just put this in an unordered list, and we're going to say each. Again, just open it up in those curly braces, and starts out with a hashtag. This time it's not if, it's going to be each. So we're going to say persons. So we're referencing the property right here as, and then we can grab what we want specifically from that array of objects in terms of the properties. So we'll say status we want and tagline. We can also add an index, right? So it'll start at 0, 1, and 2. So now we'll come out here and say each. And right here we'll say list item, and we'll say, let's see here, I plus 1. So it's interpolation. We can actually perform, simple expressions in there. We're going to say strong, and we're going to say status. And then outside of here, we'll say tagline. Now I'm adding the parentheses just because I want it to be within parentheses. It has nothing to do with the actual code. All right, so now if we save this, here's what we get. So notice I plus 1. So the first one, instead of starting at 0, it's going to start at 1, 2, and then 3. Dude, bro, chick, and it's just iterating through all those, showing you exactly what and how they present themselves. Very simple. So now let's talk about bindings, like two-way data binding, for instance. So, forms, they're a critical part of any app. So let's discover how we can communicate from form-based data to and from Svelte via this two-way data binding. In terms of, when I mean two-way data binding, going from the, defining a property from the script or the logic section of a component to the HTML or the templating section, but also from the HTML into the component logic section. So if that sounds confusing, you'll see how this works, and I'll try to do my very, very best to just describe exactly what's happening. So this time we're just gonna have a simple property, let name equal brosif. I don't know anybody who calls each other brosifs, but I feel sorry for the person that is being called brosif. H1, we're gonna say name. So we're just using interpolation. Right now, if we save this, it's just gonna say brosif right now. Very simple, right? So we want this to be kind of dynamic. So input, we're going to say bind value equals name. So let's save that and see what happens here. Something very special happens. So first we see brosif is shown up. So brosif is being shown and displayed in the template through just the H1, but also this input as the value, because we put bind.value equals the name right here. But what's really cool is it's two-way, meaning if we update this, it's sending the input data that we're putting in right here to the component right here in the script section. And because we're using interpolation, it's also being shown in other areas, like in the H1 element where we've chosen to place it as well, and it's real time. So that's very important. It's a very important concept to understand. All right, so let's do another example of this sort of two-way data binding and its reactivity using a checkbox. And in the official Svelte tutorial, which is a very well put together tutorial, very thorough, it'll show you how to use all this two-way data binding through a ton of different form elements. So definitely check that out. We're going to do checkbox real quickly though. So we're going to create a Boolean value, which is true or false value, called status, and we're going to set it to false by default. Right here, we're going to have a label. So we have a simple form element. We don't need for right now. Inside of here, we're going to say input type is going to be checkbox. All right, and we're going to say bind checked this time to status, which is our Boolean value defined up here. So it's going to be checked. It's going to be not checked by default because we set it to false. It will be checked if it's true. Do you want to learn more Svelte? All right. I don't know. Do you? We'll find out. And then we're going to combine one of the other aspects that we learned earlier with an if statement. So if status, that simply means if it's true. All right. So if it's true, let's put our else here. Let's get this stuff cleaned up or cleared up real quick. And that if. So if it's true, whatever is defined in this section, you can have multiple HTML elements, of course. We're going to say, of course, I want to learn more. And then if not, nah, I just want to keep being a noob. Okay, something like that. So let's go ahead and save this and see how this actually works. So right now, it's not checked because by default, the status is false. So if we check it, look how that reacts. Of course I want to learn more. And did I say lure? Of course. Where is it at? There we go. That's my OCD kicking in there. So now let's switch up gears a little bit and let's talk about data stores. So many times you don't want to store data at the component level. Rather, you want to store data in a central location that your components can easily access. So if you ever get involved in developing a real-world app, you find very quickly you don't want to be trying to store everything just at the component level. You want a central location from which to store something. And this has nothing to do with just it's specific to Svelte. This is pretty much Angular, React, Vue. They all have their solutions. And so the way we want to do this is we're going to create a stores.js file here in our source folder. So stores.js. And we're going to import writable. Come on, Gary, what are you doing? Writable, you don't put the E there. It's late, by the way, from svelte/store. It's grayed out because we haven't used it yet. And we're just going to export a single constant called status. And it's going to be a writable constant, something that can be read from and updated. Well, it's not called dude, the value is dude. And the property is called status. And that's all. You can, of course, make this much more robust and define more things here and different types of properties and all that. But right now, we're just making it simple. And so now we're going to open up our index.svelte. We've been working here most of the time. And we have to first import this stores right here and specifically, which properties we want to import from it. And we only have one. So we're going to import status, which is our property, our single property that we define in a stores file from. We're going to back out of a folder because we're currently up a folder in pages, stores.js. All right. So we're going to create another property just to hold the value from our status property that's stored in our stores. Wait, what did I do? Stores.main, stores.js. There we go. So we're going to say let the status. I should probably come up with better naming conventions. We're going to say const stat equals status.subscribe. So we can subscribe to these these properties defined in our store. We'll say the status equals val. All right, so val is coming here. This is whatever status the value of status is, and we're just saying our status will the status is going to equal the value of that. All right, so then we'll just use interpolation with an h1 element, and we'll say the status. So now we save this, it's going to show whatever we gave that dude, because we're coming from stores and we said dude. So that doesn't seem like a big effect when you look at it right here, but it is, because it's not coming from, that property is not coming from this component's script section or the logic section. It's coming from a central location called stores.js from which any of our components can access. So it's important to understand the difference there. Going back here, how would you update this then? This value right here, because we did make it writable. And I would also suggest checking the official Svelte tutorial on your site to see what other types of properties that you can create here. Some that are read-only, based on your needs and all that. We're not going to go over everything now. So what we're going to do is to make this something that you can adjust. We'll say on our H1 based on a hover event. So we're going to say on mouse over. We're going to reference a function that doesn't yet exist called change store. All right. So let's create that function, change store. And the way we do this is status. We call update. So, the property we want to change is called status because we import it up here. And the method is update. And same situation here where we go ahead and say n. We're going to say n equals bro. So we're going to change it from dude to bro. And it should get reflected right here. So coming back, and notice I hovered over it right there. So now you can see how some of these concepts, they overlap and they work with each other. So, the event handling of on mouse over called a function from which we updated in a store our value that we pulled in up here. All right, so hopefully you're starting to see how this stuff can make sense in the real world context. All right, so also one final note about the store. And of course, there's a lot more to learn about stores, so definitely check out the documentation. Is because these are basically these are properties you subscribe to. You also want to unsubscribe to them. Otherwise, you can result in memory leaks and issues with your app performance. So to solve that, you want to import, and this is just general best practices here, on destroy, which is a lifecycle hook saying this when this component is left or destroyed essentially. So we imported it. Now we can use it. So we can say on destroy, we're going to say stat. Stat is in reference to this right here, this property that we subscribe to. So this will unsubscribe to it. Nothing happens here noticeably. When we do this, it still works. But again, if we switch to, different components, it's being unsubscribed to each time. All right. So now let's talk about, and we're going to switch gears again. Let's talk about fetching data. Very basic thing, whether this is something that you're going to be fetching data from a public API like we're going to be doing, or your own backend, then this is something you need to know how to do. So we're going to use the modern browsers, it's very late, fetch to grab the data from the API instead of using something like Axios. If you want to support for older browsers, you can use Polyfill for this. So what we're going to do is go to our index.js, and we're going to get rid of basically everything here. Actually, we're going to leave that top one on destroy. We're going to say on mount. And we're also going to get rid of this. All right, so we're going to create an array just to hold our data that we get from the API. So that's our empty array. And we're going to say on mount, async function here. And inside of on mount, what we're going to say is const response equals await, and we're going to fetch. And this is the URL of the API. So we're going to use a public one from jasonplaceholder.typecode.com/posts. All right. So if you go to this URL in your browser right now, there's like information on what this is and how to use it. So then we're say const JSON equals await the response above. And then we'll say data equals JSON. And then we'll console log our data. So let's save that. Check this out. Control-Shift-I, and we can see we have 100 results right here from this public test API. So then if we want to show it in our components templating, we can say, remember, it's each, because we're going to iterate through an array here, as title. We just want the title. And then we'll say each here. Inside of here, we'll have an li and a paragraph with our title. And there you go. Very, very simple. So, of course, we're not doing a full CRUD example here because I think that would be just a little bit too much. Maybe I'll do that in another maybe follow-up tutorial, more intermediate. But this is how you grab data. And of course, we covered a lot of the other basic stuff within Svelte as it pertains to templating and all that. There's a lot more too. There's a lot of cool animation-based work functionality within Svelte apps that I'll probably cover as well in a separate tutorial. But yeah, hopefully you've got your feet wet enough, but we're not done yet. We are going to actually focus on deployment. So how do you deploy this app? Well, first we have to know how to build it. So to do that, let's go ahead into our thing right here. All right, so to build it, what we do is npm run build. Before it was npm run dev when you're actually developing, but we want to build it now. Say we're happy with it. And what that does is it outputs everything in this public folder right here. Now, if we right click and reveal an explorer here, we'll see that the file sizes are quite small. Forget about the map files. It's not used or anything. It's only 18 KB plus 1 KB here and 4 KB here. So it's really, really small, very fast and efficient. If you want to see what that looks like, it looks exactly the same as the dev version in your browser. All you have to do is come here, cd into public. You can npm I light server if you don't have that installed on your computer. And then after installing, just type in light server -o. And this will open up a server. And this is the actual bundled version here on your PC. So what about actually launching this on an environment that's live that people can access? There's a million different options for that. Some are very easy and quick to use, but maybe have their potential drawbacks. And there's some more robust ways, which we're going to cover right now. So this video sponsor and my monthly sponsor is from linode.com. All right, so linode.com is a cloud hosting for developers. All right, so if you join up, there's a free $20 perk that you can get access to when you join using my link below. And you'll see that once you log in, we'll go ahead and we're going to use Linode in order to host this very simple app. And I'm going to show you exactly how to get set up and running in a pretty robust kind of dev sort of friendly manner. So after you create your account with your free $20 credit, click on create, and we're going to create a Linode. Now, create new Linode. You can see there's 3 different tabs up here: distributions, also one-click. So if you have like a WordPress site, this will set up your server environment ready to go for WordPress. Drupal, WooCommerce, your MERN stack right here, LAMP for PHP stuff, all this stuff. But we're going to do it just so that we have our basic Linux distribution. We're going to choose Debian. Then select your region. I'll just leave this here. For a Linode plan, it's going to tell you, based on your needs, and you can always scale up at any time. We're just going to choose a nanode. So they're good for low duty workloads, which is our case in this context where performance isn't critical. Now again, $5 a month, but you have your $20 credit. All right, select that. Select a password. And then if you want to add an SSH key, you can, but you don't have to. So let's just choose create here. And at this point, it's going to take a little time. As you can see, it's creating the server for us, provisioning, booting, and this probably takes about 45 seconds or so. So I'm going to pause and come right back. All right, so that took less than 45 seconds, like maybe 20 seconds or something. So right now we see we have an IP address right here. If we go here, it's not going to show anything at all. It's not going to work, but you'll see how that'll change once we start to install the web server and all that good stuff. So we're going to click on Launch Console right here, and it's what we're going to do is go to Glish up here, and look. And the reason I'm switching from this, we can see they both say localhost login, is because I found there were some issues typing out certain commands in this weblish, so I went to Glish instead. And so you want to specify if you're just starting out and you didn't have any other user accounts created, we're going to choose root and then the password that you chose just a little bit ago. So let me put that in, and there we go. So if you typed it in correctly, your password, we're at root at localhost. So what we need to do, there's actually no web server installed here, at least that I know of. So we need to install one with apt-get install. And we're going to use a open source, very popular web host or web server called Nginx. Hit Y for yes to continue. And then it's going to take some time to install this stuff. You'll see all this crazy stuff. You're going to feel like you're in the Matrix, perhaps, as this stuff is scrolling by at lightning speed. And there it is. All right, so once it's finished, we actually have to start Nginx or the web server. So systemctl space, oops, I didn't have it focused on. Systemctl, all right, start Nginx. All right, hopefully you can see that. I know the type is kind of small, but there it is. It's now started, and if we take this same address here, create a new tab in our browser, welcome to Nginx, we've just got our web server installed. Awesome, awesome stuff. All right, so now going back here, what we want to do here is that welcome message is being served from a folder called var www in HTML. So if we actually go to cd var www/HTML, and then we type in ls, you will see we have a single file called index.nginx-debian.html. That is where you see all this information coming from. So that's essentially the root folder of our web server. So this is where we want the contents of our public folder to go so that we can see our app. So in order to do that, right now by default, the Nginx web server is looking in var www.html. However, if we come over here, we'll see we have a public folder. So we want it to look inside of a folder called public when we set this up. And we're going to be using GitHub and Git to push and then pull this entire project. So to do that, we want to cd or hop into /etc Nginx and sites-enabled. Now that we're in there, we want to type in nano. Nano is a way to specify a file so you can edit it on the server. So nano, there's something called default. So if you typed in ls, you'll see a single file called default in this folder. So when we open this up, here we go. We see we have kind of like this server object of sorts. What we want to update, notice where it says root. We want to change the root from var www.html to var www.html /public. So we simply take our arrow key, come all the way down, and we're going to change this to /public. Now, in order to save this, notice it has all these, it's kind of like a glossary down here. To write out, it's Control O, the letter O, and then hit enter. And then to exit out of this, Control X. So now we're out. So we saved it, but in order for all these changes to take place on the Nginx server, we have to reload it. So to do that, we're going to say service Nginx restart. There. So now it's just restarted, and if we refresh this, because it's looking in a different folder that doesn't yet exist, we're going to have a 404 not found. All right. So now what we're going to do is we need to install Git on this server. So because we want to pull from GitHub. So if we type in Git, guess what? It's not there. Yeah. For a second, I was like, wait, is it there? But it takes a little time for it to respond. So obviously the command's not found. So what we want to do, let's go ahead and type in apt-get install git. All right, so we're going to hit Y. Yes, we do want to continue. It's just letting us know how much space this is going to take. And it's done. So now what we can do, let's cd into var www.html again. All right. And what we want to do now is put this aside, and we actually have to use Git on our local machine to push that project to a GitHub repo, which means we need to go ahead and go to github.com. I'm going to assume you already have your own GitHub account. If not, go ahead and create one. After you log in, create new repo. And I'm just going to call this svelte. I'm just going to call it svelte. I was going to call it hyphen something else, but screw it. Svelte. All right, so now it's ready, and it gives you this basic information about how to get started. So we're going to go ahead and let's go back to our local console here. Control C if you have something currently running. And we're going to type in this information right here. So git init, wait, no, let's come out of public folder. Git init, all right, git add all, and then also git commit -m first commit, and then we're going to do git remote add origin. And of course, you can paste all this stuff in. So yours is going to be slightly different than this based on your username. Why is it not? There we go. We'll go ahead and add that. And then finally, git push -u origin master. Now you're going to have to set up your key for GitHub in order for this to work. I'm not going to cover that. It's going to make this that much longer. And then if you enter it correctly, I entered it wrong the first time, it'll push it. So now if we refresh this, we're going to see all of our files here. All right, so now that we've actually pushed it, we're going to go back to the server console right here, and we're going to remove all the files within HTML. So if we type in ls-al, we want to remove this index.nginx right here. A simple way to remove everything is simply just rm var www html wildcard. All right, so now we're going to say git clone, and then https github.com / your username, mine's design course, / the repo name, which is svelte.git. Then put a period, because if you don't put a period after running this command, it's going to put everything in a folder called svelte right here, or whatever the name of your repo is. We don't want it to be in a folder. We just want all this stuff to be in the root itself. So you put a period at the end. All right, so now if you type in ls-al, we'll see we have our package.json or anything that wasn't a part of the git ignore file, which you'll find in our project. All right, so now we just run npm I install just as we did when we ran it on our local machine. Oh, did we not install Node? Yeah, I don't think we actually installed Node.js, did we? So yeah, we need to install Node.js in npm in order for any of these npm commands to work. So to install Node.js for Debian, which is the distro that we used, we're going to run the following command: curl, and this basically lets us download -sl https://deb.nodesource.com/setup, not step, setup. There we go. _12, this is the version number. And then we put a pipe here, bash, and then hyphen. Now, where did I know to put this? I simply Googled how to install, Node.js on Debian. And that's what I came up with. After this is ran, we now run apt-get install -y Node.js. So those are the two commands that you use to install Node.js on your Debian server right here. All right, so now we can type in node-v, or it might be Node.js-v. Oh, nope, and that's it. We can see it's 12.8.1. That's perfect. Now we have to install npm separately. Now, if you install nodejs.org, for instance, on Windows, you don't have to install those things separately. They come together, but you do in this environment. So curl -l https://mpmjs.org/install.sh pipe sudo sh. This is going to install our npm, or the Node Package Manager. Once this installs, then now we can run our npm install command and then npm run build, which will get everything up and running, and we will be done. So don't worry. I know this is kind of a crash course, especially if you've never messed with server administration. This is probably brutal on you because there's a lot of commands. But it's one of those things. It's nice to be able to know how to work within this stuff if you're a front-end developer or a developer in general. So now that it's installed, npm-v should give us, yep. So now we just type in npm I to install everything, the package.json dependencies that are part of our project. And once that's done, then we can run npm run build, and we'll be ready to rock. So npm run build, and this shouldn't take too long. It's going to basically output everything into our public folder, and there we go. So now let's refresh after that very long process, and it's there live for everyone to see. So home, about, works just the same as it did locally. All right, so within linode.com, if I can find our, well, I'm not sure where the console went. Let me go to linode.com. If we click login, it's going to log me in automatically. You have domains and stuff, so you can set up domains and everything. I didn't show that process just because this is already a very long tutorial. So yeah, you don't have to simply rely on an IP address or anything like that. But yeah, so hopefully you learned a lot there. All right, hopefully you learned a lot. That was a crash course and kind of in two different areas, in svelte.js and also server administration. So definitely take advantage of the free $20 credit offer from linode.com. Click the first link in the description to take advantage of that, and hopefully you'll start to learn more about server environments and of course svelte.js. If you enjoyed this tutorial, let me know if you want to see more Svelte apps, maybe like a CRUD app, create, read, update, delete, based on Svelte, and let me know in the comments, and perhaps we will tackle that. All right, see you guys later. Goodbye.